see everybody here. Welcome to our first speaker series PTO event of the year. We're happy to see everyone who came out after a long week that's not over yet, but it feels like it's already been longer than the few we've had before this because we didn't have any days off. So we're happy to see everybody. We are, first of all, so grateful to this esteemed panel who have taken their time and graciously offered their expertise and talents to us tonight. So let's give them a round of applause right off the bat. I'm going to introduce our moderator, and then he will introduce the panel. But we're happy everyone's here. I hope you've signed in because we're collecting emails, and everyone will receive a copy of the presentation and the links to all the resources. We have paper resources and brochures out there, and we'll be able to pull some of them up on the screen tonight. So this is about what the high school has to offer academically, what supports there are, what resources there are, how to navigate, and we really welcome all your questions tonight because we're going to learn as much from the audience, I think, as from the panelists. There's a lot of experience out there in the audience. So I'm going to introduce Nevin Jenkins, my co-vice president of Parent Education and Advocacy for the PTO, and he is going to be our moderator tonight. Thanks, Nevin. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot what I was actually supposed to say, which was an update that keep your eyes open because either November 26th or 27th, we're still deciding on the date, our next speaker series event is going to be why should we be a restorative community? Why be a restorative practices community? And our speaker is going to be an expert from the International Institute of Restorative Practices, Chella Drew. She's coming from Baltimore to speak to our community. So please mark your calendars for that. More information to come. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nevin Jenkins. I'm the co-vice president with Emily. I teach at Warrensville Heights High School. I teach engineering, STEM, and web design. I have 3 children here. I'm in Shaker, one of which is a freshman at Shaker Heights High School. And my wife, she facilitates community builders at Onaway Elementary. Our panelists this evening are first, on the end here, I got John Moore. He's an IB graduate and district and high school IB coordinator, has firsthand experience of the transformative power of the IB program, taught biology in Shaker for 7 years before transitioning an IB-focused role. PhD focus was on advocating for underrepresented and marginalized youth at the policy level. Our next panelist is Mary Bourasseau. Did I pronounce that right?
Good.
Okay.
Good French.
She's a high school counselor here in her 29th year with Shaker Heights City Schools. She was an intervention specialist at Mercer and Onaway Elementary Schools before returning to her alma mater as a school counselor 12 years ago. And she's spearheading the mindfulness initiative right now at the high school. We have David Peak, a school counselor, equity task force member, PTO liaison, chairperson of the African American Male Conference Committee, and member of the newly confirmed high school cultural competency team. Then we have Naya McNutt. Naya came to Shaker this year as a junior and joined the IB diploma program. She brings the unique perspective of being able to compare how her previous school relates to the Shaker way. She is a high-achieving student who is also engaged in athletics. And Brianna Jefferson. She's a senior that took 12 credit hours of college courses through College Credit Plus as a junior. She's currently enrolled in the 2nd year of the Business Management program through the Career Technical Consortium, the CTE program it's called. Also traveled to Atlanta to represent Shaker as a member of the DECA program, so I'm sure she'll tell us about that. She's also on the leadership team here, and there's a group called Take Action, where she tutored at Beaumont. And last, we have Sarah Davis, A-Push teacher, IB history teacher, Bridges coordinator. Sarah is the mother of 2 Shaker students with many years' experience teaching history at the high school. And we just found out today, Sarah will make sure she tells us about study circles, which she gave us the times and dates, which are on our resources also up here. So thanks ahead of time for helping us get this started. Can I get a show of hands of parents that have a current high schooler? Awesome. Current middle schooler? Ooh, that's cool. Woodbury? And any elementary schoolers also? That's really good. Okay, so by the time we get this information, maybe in about 5 years, we'll fully understand the breadth of and the depth of what Shaker has to offer. Since it's an honor for me to be up here because I do have a freshman student, and trying to dig through all the different pathways that she has in front of her, it can be a difficult task. So hopefully we can figure out some of that tonight. And just to get the question started, and feel free, and after each question, we'll just see how organic it goes amongst the panelists, whoever would like to answer. And first, just to get the conversation started, what's one thing that the staff and faculty at Shaker Heights High School do extremely well?
Ladies?
Well, I really feel like Shaker staff, they really help students. They work with you, like they try to figure out what works best for you, and they help you to achieve any goals and accomplishments that you have, and I like that they're always available whenever you need them.
I was thinking along the lines of the same thing. They're very supportive and accommodating, depending on your situation. Very helpful and welcoming.
I would jump in and I would say that what Shaker staff do extremely well is form relationships with kids. And hopefully in your children's journey here, you can find more than one really special adult that takes them under their wing, that they feel safe with, that they feel they can have a conversation, and that maybe their teaching style really works for them, and they find out a lot about themselves through that relationship.
I might add the intellectual capacity or rigor, or I think we as a staff, as a faculty, would rival some of the intellectual endeavors of college areas. And that comes out in curriculum development, that comes out, I think, in the high achievement of our students. And it's not just this idea of intelligence, but I would say you'd be hard-pressed to find artists that rival even art teachers here at the high school. So the professionalism of the faculty, I think, is second to none.
I just want to say we prepare students for college very, 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 very well. Maybe too well, depending on who you ask. What does he mean too well? But many of the students that I talk to that are at the collegiate level, they say overwhelmingly that they feel like they're over-prepared, that their classmates sometimes struggle. They're like, oh my God, there's so much work. And the Shaker students are like, man, we did this we did more in high school. So I think we do a great job of that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, that's the, I think a lot of us do a good job of explaining to the students, okay, this is why we're doing this is where this can take you. But I also think I'm always amazed at how we always get new clubs every year, right? There's always faculty who are willing, you can't have a club unless you have a faculty sponsor. And even though the list of clubs is completely overwhelming to me, and I've taught here for 23 years, there's always a new one. There's just always
There's a lettuce club this year. I have no idea what they do, right? And that's just one of them, of a bunch of them. So I think we really try to help the students follow their interests wherever that might be.
Even if it's eating a head of lettuce in 30 minutes.
I guess.
What's one opportunity that is offered to Shaker Heights High School students that could really assist them in achieving their goals? And it's usually might be something that maybe doesn't get a lot of talk about or something, but something unique to Shaker, any kind of opportunity that is offered.
I want to jump in here. I think it's our guidance staff. I really do. I just got back last night from another AP conference called AP Forum, and there were people there from colleges as much as from high schools. And nobody has the guidance staff that we do, and who are good at meeting with the kids and following up with them and following up with families and I mean and having kind of that time in their day to try to do that. And then many of them, I don't know if you know this, but many of them are there long before or long after their day is officially begun and over. So I think that's something that really your student can, if they can listen to their guidance counselor, right, and then form that relationship, it can really make magic happen for them.
Not coincidentally, I was going to mention the counselors as well, specifically in the idea of even letters of recommendation,
Oh my gosh,
opportunities
yeah.
for mentorship. I mean, these are things that young people are not getting other places. To imagine somewhere else where over the course of 4 years, a young person has developed such a genuine, authentic relationship to the point where their counselor can write an authentic, heartfelt, meaningful, and impactful recommendation. What these folks are doing are truly huge for our young people, and it's an opportunity that you're not going to find elsewhere.
No, you're not.
Speaking of counselors, I find advisory something that is unique. We do not have that at my other school, and I think it's nice for us to be able to meet as a grade and as a group of students with our counselors one-on-one to discuss issues and mention our concerns and do interactive activities.
How often is that advisory?
I believe it's
Once a month.
once a month, the first Thursday.
Do they meet with counselors?
But the juniors do.
The juniors do.
Okay.
I was going to add the Academic Resource Center. I was just speaking with a student last week that was having some difficulty in math, and talking to her in the hallway, another student of mine is walking down the hallway that needed to talk to me. So I said, hey, come here. And I just said, do you tutor in the Academic Resource Center? She said, well, yeah. And I said, what day do you tutor? She said, well, I tutor today. And I said, well, hey, why don't you meet this student? I won't say their names, but you can go and she'll tutor you today. And she said, okay, yeah, I'd love to do that. So I followed up with the student, and she had a great time working with, so one of my juniors worked with one of my seniors. And that's a resource that, although I've said it many times, and I feel like it's been said many times, when I was standing there with the junior in the hallway, she said she didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, you're my kid. I know that you've heard this before, but okay, you didn't know. And there are students that just they underutilize that resource because they're not aware. So the Academic Resource Center, I saw a hand go up. It's open Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 4 to 6 p.m.
Typically, students tutoring students, but we have students we have Spanish and German. We have kids the kids are really great. There's adults also there, but the kids are really great in helping, and it's the most underutilized resource we have here. And that, with kids, I often hear of kids, I want a teacher change, I can't relate to this teacher. And, I tell kids, that's life. You're not going to work with everyone that you like, and so let's make a plan, because I can't make a teacher change. And so usually I can, like Mr. Peak said, the same thing. To go into the Writing Center, I just had the same example with the Writing Center, where I had a student that knew about the Writing Center, but had never done it, so I walked her up there, and I had another student explain what to do, and then they arranged for a time when they can meet, so.
Did you say which room?
Yeah.
It's, there's actually a handout, it is in room,
I think it's 254,
228.
228?
228 for the Writing Center, and for the Academic Resource Center, it's
216,
216 and 254.
254.
Mhm.
216 and 254.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are these classrooms easily found?
Yes.
I
Oh,
was
yes.
told by one of mine that
Not-
they could not find the room.
well, I can help you find it.
Thank
I
you.
will help them find it.
Yeah, I sent a picture of where to find one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's another question?
Yeah, if your kid is in a sport or something, is there a way to utilize those resources, because usually the sports start at 4?
Right, so, yeah, I mean, I've had many conversations with hockey players that they can come back after hockey. They don't always like that idea. We do actually have some tutoring in the day in math. And just yesterday, I had a student that it was in 10th period and needed help in 10th period. So I went in 10th period, found another student that could help them and meet in the library. So there are resources during the day. We have set tutors, but if they have a study hall or PE in their day, sometimes we can find that. And you'd work with your counselor on that.
And the Writing Center is also available during a number of lunch periods, and during at least one of the study halls. So it's open 4th period lunch, 6th period lunch, and 9th period study hall. And it's also open 3 to 4. And technically, except for hockey, they're supposed to be available from 3 to 4 before athletics.
But the Writing Center you have to sign up for, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
but you can really just walk in.
Okay,
I mean, unless they're full, you can just walk in,
Yeah.
and they have not been full yet.
okay.
So one of the things that I want to say about Shaker is I really feel like we're building for the future, right? So we're building, we want, when you drop your freshman off at college, you want to be confident that they're going to go to school, that they know how to talk to a professor, right? That they know how to use the Writing Center, because there's a Writing Center at every school. And the new thing is we want them to have mental health services. We want them to know how to access, I call it who's your backbone, who do you call when you're in trouble, but also how are you dealing with your mental wellness. And that's a new initiative that I'm really pioneering here, starting on Monday. My lovely art student made this for me. We're having Mindful Mondays for staff and students, and really it's a 10-minute meditation, directed. I have activities planned, and teaching kids different ways, and also giving them, using some apps that are very accessible and free to them, and giving them some strategies. So that's the first step. We have a possible room during lunchtime being planned. We're looking at funding and grants, working with the fire marshal. So it's underway, and we're getting a lot of momentum. So I do think that there will be something in play this year.
And where is this?
This is right here
Right
in the
here.
morning,
Small auditorium.
starting all day. Before school, 7:40. The doors will be open probably 7:30, but I'm going to say 7:40 because I have to get here.
I just have a few more questions about what exactly the Academic Resource Center is and the Writing Center. So is this a place that, for the Academic Resource Center, that you can walk in and it'll cover any subject? So there's always somebody there covering all subjects?
Yes,
Math,
Pretty much.
Math, science, English, social studies. The languages are not every day.
Spanish and German.
The languages are not every day, but there's a schedule for those.
And what were the times again for?
4 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay, and then, so then the Writing Center, how is that different than English? Is it-
So the Writing Center, students work with student peer tutors that have been trained, and they're writing on anything. So it's really expanded this year. It's in its 3rd year. So they're working on any writing, maybe editing, brainstorming, any aspect of writing. They're also working with students like in APUSH, where they're doing DBQs and they're having, issues with that.
Sorry, what's a DBQ? I'm sorry.
What's a DBQ?
Okay, so for DBQ is a document-based question, where they have to use, they get with the question a series of quotations usually, or cartoons, or a mix, and they have to incorporate references to those quotations or pictures into their answer. They also, like one of my students is here, And she went today during her study hall to work. They have a long semester research project. And so they went in with the current, we don't do it all like in one step. We do it in multiple stages across the semester. And so they brought in their steps so far to have it looked at the citations and the bibliography and how can they make the language more specific and how can they think about other resources that they could look up and use or find to add to their project. So the Writing Center really helps with multiple stages of writing, whether it's kind of preparing for an in-class type of essay or with take-home assignments. I know when my child was a freshman last year, and she went in frequently to prepare because, just like spelling issues and grammar issues and how do you phrase something so it sounds different from the previous sentence, right? And all of those kinds of things. And they can really meet the kids where they're at and move them forward. So it's really fantastic.
And there's a lot of different, I'm all about personalities, so there's a lot of different personalities. So there's these big personalities, and then there's people that are quieter personalities, and the kids can really match up to a style that fits them. And I really love that about it.
And Sarah did a good job pointing out the process, no matter where in the process. But I think we also want to consider and push young people that the subject matter doesn't matter. You said, how is this different from English? Well, economics certainly writes papers, and science we do labs, and so on and so forth. They are well equipped to support your young person in all subject areas, and they're trained even on the different citation methods, so APA in science and MLA for other things. So they are ready to help your young person in any of their subject areas with any of their assignments.
Could I, Brianna, could you get us started on your College Credit Plus experience and your CTE experience a little bit to get these questions started about that?
Sure. Well, I guess I'll start with CTE since I started that process sophomore year. We attended a career fair that's actually coming up in November. I don't know exactly, but it's coming up in November. There are a bunch of different careers that your student can choose from. I personally chose business management was my first choice. You have to apply and get accepted. I was accepted, and it's a 2-year program at Cleveland Heights High School. It offers 7 college credits, so that's what I would be graduating with, and a certificate. I feel like it really prepares you for whatever career path that your student will decide to go down. For example, I had an internship at Metro Health Hospital in Eliza Bryant Village, and I feel like the terms and the things that we learned there really helped me understand what was going on in the organizations that I was working for. I feel like it really prepared me. For College Credit Plus, I started that my junior year. I found out through my counselor, Mr. Peak, and so that process, basically, you had to take an entrance exam, which really wasn't that hard. You took it here in the computer lab, and it'll place you in whatever level that your student will attain, and then you will meet with your counselor and figure out what you need to take to graduate, like what credits you need to have in order to graduate, and you will also talk about other opportunities, like things that you might want to take, because once you get accepted, you can take really anything that you want to take. I took it at Tri-C, and I left campus a lot last year. This year, I hope to start back in the spring. I didn't have any room in my schedule this year, but yeah, that was really good. I got 12 credits through Tri-C.
College
for
credits.
college credits, yes.
How did you get to and from?
My mom, she came and got me and took me there and back.
Is that the only transportation? They have to get there on their own for, okay.
They also have, I know they have, I think, English composition here.
Yeah, so we do
Yeah.
have some College Credit Plus courses offered here in the building. So like College Composition 1 and 2. We have the African American Studies course through Kenyon College. We have, yes, the college math course. We have college photography through Kenyon College. So we do have some offerings here in the building as well.
Was there also some offered online? Because in the summer, I think there was some that were online courses rather than in person.
So those aren't college courses.
Okay.
That would be just our summer program, and we do those courses through Lincoln Learning Online, but they're not college courses.
No, this was through Tri-C. I think it was like the 8-push class. They were looking for kids to participate, but they didn't get enough. And
I don't know.
they suggested that Kent or somebody had it online instead. I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, you're teaching us tonight, because we
Yeah.
can know.
Yeah, because somebody had recommended that you went online through Gabriel Karen.
I'm not familiar, but
Can we go in and talk and continue talking about now, how does that relate to other CTE programs that kids might want to get involved with, but also the IB possible, like, what are these, how do IB classes compare to CCP, or which way should my child go, or can they do both?
I think it's a great question, and certainly we have young people that will do a mix of IB classes, AP classes, CCP or College Credit Plus classes. Nevin, I think your question is particularly good because the guarantees or assurances that you're going to get for college credit are dependent upon the types of classes you're taking and where you want to go. For example, College Credit Plus is, and help me out here, colleagues, but it is a state initiative, which means a successful completion of College Credit Plus. State requires public universities to honor those credits. Private, not as much, but I did hear that they're coming on board because small private colleges are struggling right now. That's different if you're planning on going across state lines or to another country. College Credit Plus, because it's an Ohio initiative, it is certainly guaranteed with Ohio, not so much without. College Board and International Baccalaureate for AP and IB classes, those are certainly more transferable in the sense that they are international or national organizations that span college or state lines and country lines. But those are going to be highly dependent upon the scores that you get at the final exam time, the end of course assessment.
And the school.
And the school, that's very true too. Specifically for IB, I can speak to when young people have a college in mind and they're starting to make some of these choices. Most colleges will have a nice, clear policy on their website. You check out Penn State or wherever it is you want to go, and they should have a list of, we give you this for that if you get this score. So I say look at the college level if you want to make an informed choice. The final thought that I would say on that, though, particularly in recent years with the IB standard level courses, our students have had much better luck advocating to get credit for some of the things that they're doing. And that might entail saying, here is the course syllabus. These are the things we covered, and I got a 6 out of 7. I know these things, Department Chair. Let's talk about that. And through that negotiation process, which we hope to teach them those skills too, they may actually get more credit than what's even listed on the policy. But only if they initiate the conversation.
Right.
And would this be a good time, Sarah, to just plug in the Bridges program and how that's affecting AP and IB here?
So we started the Bridges program with a group of sophomores who are now seniors, so in the summer of 2016. The purpose of the Bridges program is to increase the diversity of our students, both what I call the seen and unseen diversity of our students in the classrooms of our honors, AP, and diploma courses. And we've been successful. We started with history, and we expanded to math. And this summer we started with math and English in 9th grade, and history and math for sophomores and juniors. And we have now much more diversity than we did. We're up to about a third people of color in our diploma program, which I know is not reflective of the whole of our population as a building. It is definitely the direction that we need to be going in, and it is sadly fabulous compared to the rest of the state of Ohio's programs. And so we are definitely making the progress that we need to be making in a short period of time. I'm very pleased about that.
Naya, would you like to talk a little bit about your experience in the IB?
Yeah, I chose IB when I got here. I really liked what it had to offer and the learning style of it. It takes a very holistic approach to what your courses that you're studying, and it's very focused on connections. So, like, say I'm learning something in my chemistry class, I can relate it to something I might have learned in another class in math or something. Everything eventually lines up, and yeah. So.
Can you talk a little bit about the rigor, just what that's been like in your time here with the IB program?
It's been a lot. There is a lot of work involved because it is very holistic. So you're focused on academics, and then you also have like service. So we, as an IB diploma student, you take part in CAS, which is creativity, activity, and service. You have to get hours in each area, and then we also participate in government. So you're very involved in the community, and the workload is it is a lot sometimes, but it's manageable as long as you stay on top of things and get stuff turned in time.
When do you sleep?
I try my best to sleep when I can.
Her mom is here. Her mom would. Not very.
But it's
So what are those supports and resources then that you find?
I usually end up going to conferences pretty much every day after school. And it starts right after school and it goes until 4 o'clock each day, depending on what I need help with. So today I was in econ. I was having trouble understanding certain concepts, and we have tests tomorrow. So so the teachers are very helpful, and it provides one-on-one interaction, very smaller groups. If you're afraid to ask questions in class, or you're shy in class, it's just a better approach to make sure you understand the material.
So with these mindfulness things in the morning, then, I mean, this is a lot of work. Is that really just on Mondays, or is that every day? For mindfulness?
It's every day, every morning.
Every morning at 7:40?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the need's there, we know the need is there, we see a lot of stressed and overwhelmed kids. We have a Zen room that a CAS student, student did as a CAS project, but that's one room in the nurse's office. And we know that there's a lot of times that kids, our lunchroom is extremely loud, and if you're an extrovert and you love that energy, it's a great place to be. But if you're not, it's a pretty horrific place. And sorry, but it is. I mean, some people, we have lots of students that go to the library every day and don't eat lunch. So we don't have a place for everyone. And I think that we also have students, these young ladies that are highly involved, that were worried about not getting sleep. Seriously, it's a big, in my junior advisory, I had everyone stand up and said, how many of you got 8 hours of sleep? Sit down. How many of you got 7 hours? How many got 6? And there's still people standing at 4. They all sat down at 4. I didn't go any lower. But so we know that there's a need. So we have to start somewhere, and this is a place to start. There's great initiatives all over the country, all over the world, but people are taking it from in the classroom. I'm a counselor. I'm looking at what I can control, and I can control what I do with some of my time. And so that's our first push. I think that it's like the field of dreams. I think if we build it, it will come, and it will really turn into something more.
Anecdotally, but you may be able to speak to data, I've seen a big uptick in the young people who engage in yoga as their PE credit as well. I think that's a great opportunity
We now
for
have
young
a
people.
0 period PE yoga, 2 classes actually, so there's 60 kids enrolled, over 60 kids in the morning, and then 1 period during the day, and then kids are also exposed to it through the PE curriculum. So that's grown over the last 2 years.
It's a great avenue for young people looking for that credit. I mean, if online walking is not for you, maybe yoga is.
I signed up a kid for online.
I know it. See, it's real, people. It's real. All right.
My son took it.
Oh,
I hate
no.
to say senior year, where he was on his case, but.
Oh, there's also something new. There's a new collaboration with, maybe you guys could speak with Maple Heights and Shaker and Warrensville and a couple others. It's not CTE, but it's something else now? Or
Well, so
some class offerings?
we have expanded our career technical consortium to include some other districts. So before it was Shaker Heights, Cleveland Heights, and Warrensville Heights, and now we expanded to include Bedford and Maple. So we have some additional offerings. One of my students is doing the firefighter EMT program now. So he travels there every morning, then comes back here for his core curriculum. So we do have expanded offerings.
There's a construction site.
I actually know some of those
If
kids.
you look up on the screen here, you can see the different programs.
But
We've been
yeah, so
sending.
we've expanded the consortium, and we have additional offerings.
Including a teacher's academy or something, right?
Yeah,
At Maple.
I don't have a kid in that one yet. But
Okay.
yeah, so that's an interesting one there.
So students in their sophomore year will take buses over to, they have like a fair day, and students can kind of talk to kids in the program, find out about it. And then when we do program planning in February in their sophomore year, so to their rising juniors, that's when they would elect to go into a career prep program.
With those programs, I've had students do them throughout the years, and some students will leave the programs and will decide to just go on to college. Brianna's going to college. She's going on a college visit Sunday, right? Some students may decide to go straight into the workforce. I ran into a student at Target recently. I'm always at Target. So I ran into a student at Target recently, and he did the criminal justice program. So he got his Ohio Peace Officers Training Association certificate. So he's a POTA certified. He could do security here, but he does security at the Q, and he secures one of the lots at Shaker. So he makes actually pretty good money now. He drives a pretty nice car for a person that's 20, and he told me he got a championship ring when the Cavs won a championship, because I guess everybody that works there got one. It wasn't the players' ring, but it was something. But he's doing well for himself. He actually went to college for a semester, didn't really like it, and decided to utilize the certificate that he got through the program. So some students will go on to college, some students will be workforce ready coming right out of high school and can make pretty decent money.
You know, as a counselor, one of our roles and what we want for kids is if you're not going to, you have a plan. When you leave Shaker, you have a plan, whether it's work or school, some kind of apprenticeship, but you leave with a plan, and we're really dedicated to making that happen. We have a new program here called through JOGS.
Jobs for
And
Ohio grads.
Jobs for Ohio grads. We have it for 11th and 12th graders, and today in the classroom they were doing resume making, and I think it's going to be a great avenue for students that maybe are not necessarily four-year college bound students to have opportunities and training while in high school to afford them to get a job.
And before we open it up to the audience, we'd like to hear some questions from you. Could you explain study circles?
Okay, so study circles are have a long history here in Shaker, and but the short version is that study circles are an addition to the conference period and an addition to the ARC. The goal is to teach students how to be more effective study partners with other students. And there's science, there's math, and there's history. And I run the history study circle. And the times are up there, and I'm sorry, I've been here since like before 8 o'clock this morning, so I can't rattle the times off and room numbers again, but I know
It's right
they're
here
up there.
on the
Yeah,
spreadsheet.
thank you so much. I guess I can't remember anything anymore, but the goal of the study circles for math and science is really, the kids kind of bring their problems and then problem solve together through them wherever course they're in. For the history one, I usually have a goal for each session that we're going to accomplish. Like tonight, they're starting to learn the document-based questions, otherwise known as DBQs, and looking for a point of view, and how you write about that as an historian versus how you might have written about point of view in an English class, and then the demands of those questions. And every time I have a different focus for them, but again, the kids bring in their question, what they need, right? I had another kid in there working on a research paper, and so he was able to make some progress, and I could come back and be with him while the other students were working with each other. So, and that's really the goal of it, is to provide some of that additional one-on-one time, like Naya was talking about in the conferences, and also to really help the students learn how to be effective study buddies with each other and with people that maybe they don't know. And that's mostly because of the research by Professor John Ogbu here in the 1990s, which a lot of people have read nationally. But the research is that students who learn how to have peer study partners are the most effective in college and graduate school. And so those are the skills that we want them to have. Like Mary said, we're kind of just building that capacity out. I mean, these are some of the skills that we really want them to have as they move through the high school. It makes them a much more successful high school student, and we know that it will take them places where they need to go. And as all of us know, right, in the work world, we all work with other people all the time. I mean, that's really what we do. And those skills, like you're getting in all of your courses about how to do that, your internship, I mean, those are such a valuable thing for students to have, really important.
I'm wondering if it's possible or are there any kind of study circle concepts going on, like for athletes that can't participate in this?
We have a coordinator this year, right?
So Al Slauson is serving as an academic coach for athletes, and he's in the building quite a bit. And so Al is tracking grades and working with athletes, and he's math oriented, so he can really help kids with the math and science. And I know that he's working with kids on a daily basis, and it's a great resource. But there's also, like when we had football season going on, there was a study table going on for athletes. There's things going on Monday afternoon for athletes, trying to give them study space.
And one more, this is actually a question from the audience. About planning the academic pathway for their students who are coming into the high school with IEPs or 504s?
Well, I don't think that it's any different for a kid on a 504 or an IEP to what I say is typical student. And typical is here to there, right? There is no, so I think that we do a great job in Shaker, that we have our 8th grade meeting with our families and our kids, and we take those meetings very seriously. We actually meet with every kid. If families can't come in, we go over to the middle school and meet with the students. And it's a really good snapshot for us to get to know the students and what their needs are, because we have so many great students and teachers. So like we have, 5 different teachers that teach global studies. And not everybody, your child might not match really well with this teacher. But your child may need someone who's highly structured and really, so you can stay on it, so you're not helicoptering parent, but you're being a parent and knowing what they're aware of. And you may have a kid that doesn't need any of that, but what they really need is some relief in the day, and they need someone with a sense of humor. And we can, based on those meetings, we can look at teachers and styles. Kids have, every kid has a strength and a weakness. So we can look at when we put those classes in schedule. If you really struggle in math, 10th period math is not a good time for you, right? So I think that we do a really good job, and I don't think it matters if you're on a 5 or 4 and an IEP. I think that your point person is your counselor, because we are really trying to set you up ultimately for success by how we build your schedule and how we look at your day.
Devin, I heard you mention pathway, and I do think it's a good point to take out online the academic planning guide.
Yeah.
It is online, it's very large, I invite you to scroll through it at your leisure. But if you open this up, and I think I have a PDF down there for you, Alec, you will find really well laid out pathways, meaning to say, if this is the type of class experience you've had in 8th grade, here's a natural progression in that way. Or if you're looking for these types of things, here's a progression there. And so each subject area has these pathways that clearly illustrate knowing where you want to go, how you're going to get there. And that's for math and science and all the like. In addition to just having all of the myriad electives, options, anything you wish to know about the high school is likely in this document here.
At this time, I'd like to invite anyone from the audience to continue asking questions. Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm an academic, which means I have a comment and a question. So, first, my comment, I'll be a little blunt. There seemed to be kind of a joking note in the air when we were talking about students getting no sleep. It's not funny.
No.
And I'm really concerned about this. I think that if students are sleeping 4 hours a night, maybe they have too much work. And the amount of work is not equivalent to the rigor of the course. I say that as an educator. And it's great to have programs that are meant to alleviate stress, but I'd like to know more about what the school is doing to create less stress to begin with.
Well, I'll give you an example of a problem that came up and kind of how we're dealing with the solution.
Thank you for that.
In 10th grade this week, many of the students had tests in AP US History, 10 honors math, and either honors or AP biology. And those are the ones I know. Right, and because of how we have our test schedule set up, you know, kids were under enormous stress. I had students reach out to me about it. And so one of the suggestions today, because I do think it's real, and I'm not joking about stress and student sleep, because I saw it with my own kids. And one of my suggestions to my department head is that that he take to department heads and by grade level have a calendar. So teachers were aware of what students were doing in other classes. Because in the high school we tend to be subject specific, so science and whatnot. And so then, because we do have a flexibility of having like a science test on a Wednesday or a Friday, and that being aware that possibly we could start to look at this and teachers could start to be aware of the demands of kids in classes. So I think that's, we see it as, so we're trying to be proactive. I've been here a long time and we've had studies on homework and whatnot, and I haven't seen any change in the homework. So I get what you're saying, but I think that if we are proactive, I think IB does a nice job of, because they're a smaller community, that they're aware of their calendar, and if we can open that up into a greater discussion with all our staff, I think it would help. No one is discounting that kids aren't sleeping. I mean, there's you talked about clubs. I had 2 students come to me and they want to do a student-to-student club. And so their idea was great, but one of the things as it's getting massaged down is they want to talk about just these things, about how you do time management, because we have a lot of kids that don't have good time management skills. We work on them individually, but, and teachers structure their classroom for time management, but how can we teach some other skills to reduce that stress? I say all the time, high school is the only time that we ask kids to take 6 to 7 classes, be involved in an activity, do chores at home, keep your room clean, and play on a sport team.
Yeah.
None of us in this room do that.
job in the summer and I know track.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know what the answers are. I think the answers are, you know, dealing with issues as they come up and coming up with proactive responses to it. And that's a long answer to a short question.
Oh, it wasn't a short question.
Right,
That
yes.
kind of leads me to my question or my concern is that, what do you do, and I'm sure you've had this, with the kids that just don't quite have organizational skills to get into the freshman year? Like, that's my concern for my student coming in. Like, how am I gonna manage this?
Like, let's start with the brain and what we're asking kids to do,
Right.
right? And the frontal lobe not being, you know, when does high school not, you know, when does, I'm a realist, and some people don't like that about me, but that's okay, I like it about me. But when did high school stop being high school, right? And, yeah, we have all this data that, you know, IB is wonderful, and it is, and taking 5 AP tests will help you graduate 4 years in college on time, but what about my kid? And what about their, you know, building and being successful?
I do want to speak specifically to the city of organizational management and things like that. I do know that that is an initiative of ninth grade Lang and Lit teachers, and particularly if you match with the right one, that they are teaching explicit organizational skills. It's in the curriculum that we've written to consider some of this. You're now in 8 rigorous classes, 7 rigorous classes and things. So there are some aspects of that in the curriculum that all students should be experiencing, which will hopefully give them some of those skills, but certainly other avenues exist, your counselor, and the young person can advocate to seek additional supports beyond what is happening in
We
the
give out a planner, and that's nice, but if you really want an ideal planner, look at Passion Planner. I love Passion Planner, it's online, and the reason I love it is it maps out the whole day, it has kids setting goals, it has a month at a time. It's a lot like a bullet journal, but with a bullet journal, a lot of college kids are doing that. The bullet journal, they have to make it themselves. Some high school students will do it, but they're not quite ready there developmentally, but the Passion Planner is a really nice planner that organizes kids. Yeah.
Right here, and then, go
So
ahead.
mine was just really continuing, it was like a response on
Oh.
to that, because I knew that John last year stood up and said that, you know, he showed us his calendar mapping all of the testing against each other. And I know my daughter had all 4 of those tests this Wednesday. And that when she spoke, you know, the maths group spoke to their teacher, and she said, I wish I didn't have to give this to you. She spoke to someone else, but it was really like, no, it has to be today. And of course, yes, the quarter is finishing. So
But this
everybody
isn't
needs
the
it.
only
But
time it happens
this
at work.
isn't, it's not rocket science. Like, most of the, you know, you're excellent, well-qualified teachers, and it's a problem that everybody's aware of and has been aware of for years. And it just requires people talking across subjects, and I would really, really like to see that happening, because it is hideous being at home with a child who has to deal with that.
Well, and then it kind of backs up into the problem of which conference you go to prioritize which test you need to be studying for, so it compounds the stress.
I just want to say one thing. I think, you know, there are a lot of us who talk with the kids about how to study and how to approach the material. You know, my strategy with my kids, which I start saying to them the spring before they start, I meet with them in May before they've entered my classroom, and I say, your job this summer is to get a chapter ahead. And some of them are able to do that, and some of them, right, they're just that the urgency isn't there until they start facing some of those things. And some of that, unfortunately, for those of us who are parents, is developmentally appropriate for them to have trouble managing things in an executive function. And it's also really hard for them, I think, to prioritize, and that's also developmentally appropriate. And you know, that kind of facility, it's like learning how to snap. right? I mean, I have a kid who's been able to do this since the age of 6, and I have one who still can't do it. And it's just, it's like, it's just it's something that I think our guidance staff really tries to work with them with their schedule. And then sometimes it's also trying to have them, sometimes they have to experience it and then say, okay, this quarter, I'm going to plan it differently. I think the other part, I mean, Mary mentioned sports. I mean, I graduated from here in 1990, and sports practices have almost doubled in the amount of time that students have on the field or in the court or wherever. And that's just one example of the many, many things that our kids do that now take much more time. And so that I mean, there's a lot of factors here at play.
Right.
I'm not just hearing this at the high school, I'm hearing it, I was hearing it in middle school, and I was also hearing it when my daughter was at Woodbury. That each department may know what the issues are, or counselors may know what an issue is, but that's where there's a disconnect. And so my question is, so you notice there's this issue with all of the testing that's all happening at one day through various courses, and you go to your department head, how long does it take either school-wide or district-wide for an initiative to be implemented that might address that type of issue? Say, what we really need to do is when kids are entering high school, or maybe we started at the middle school, is that we really need to start truly teaching them across the board, not by each class, not just in language and literature, or not just here, how to manage their time. I mean, we do it in little bits and parts. I mean, they get their planners in middle school, they were getting them when they were in Woodbury, and getting that, or teaching them what their learning style is, or taking classes on, I know when I was in college, one of the first things we did as freshmen is we took an entire class, not only in time management, and how to manage having a class in the morning or a class in the evening, but also learning what our learning styles were, so that each child could understand if they were a visual learner, maybe their teacher wasn't, but how they could interact with that teacher or something. So how long does it take once you realize something's happening to be able to implement that quickly so that then it's not continuing to happen? As Kate said, we're going on, it's going on for years and years and years.
Well, I think when I, talked to my department head, I had a specific solution that is pretty easy. So, I mean, I put it out there, I saw a problem, I came up with a solution, and I hope that they will start on it. As a guidance department, we're working very hard with Woodbury through high school, we don't have them at the elementary school, on having a curriculum. And we're actually looking at learning styles and having kids take learning style inventories at different parts, at different times, so they actually do have that and do see that, and sometimes that there's a switch in that over time. So, addressing that.
I have a question.
Yeah, so one of the things I struggle with, two of you know one of mine very well, and this is one of the frustrations that I've dealt with since 5th grade. It's the executive function is the one thing, but as a result of the executive function, and the part that kind of bothers me is the fact that the way the grades are weighted dependent on class. He tests phenomenally well. And what happens is when I come to conferences, I'm not worried about him. And then I look at the grade, and we're talking like a C or a D, or in some cases an F, depending on how things are weighted. Well, I am worried about it. And how do we, if this doesn't matter, then you know what? I'm not having him do these 200 frickin' questions if they're only worth 10, because you're stressing him. And then it's not amounting to anything. There's some that are very well planned and laid out that make sense. One thing builds on another. A-push makes sense to me. Some of these others where you're doing 65 questions a night, this is like, I don't know what the purpose is in some of these exercises of redundancy. I understand you learn through repetition. However, is it not sufficient to do 10 versus 50? The European schools take a very different approach to a lot of this, and they seem to be doing pretty well when you look at the rankings. So I don't understand how we continue to follow the same path and then tell parents, don't worry about it. But if these grades are what enable my child to get into a school or not, I am worried about it. So how do we, and I've always said, it's not your issue, it's not my issue, it's our issue. And what can I do to help? What can I do to support you? How do I help him? But I don't know what the answer is, because I get out if I will get support to set up something where we have somebody come in to help with the executive function, talk to parents first, talk to parents how to manage this. Do we get involved? Do we butt out? What do we do? How do we support so that we eliminate the stress? The rise of teen suicide is ridiculous, and we're doing it to our kids. I have told my kids that if you're in a sport, by all means, it's supposed to be a stress relief. If you're not getting your homework done, tell the coach you're not going on this day. Make me the bad guy. I don't care. Sports are not life. It's an activity. So how do we figure this out as a group, and how do we make this happen?
Before you guys try to attempt an answer to that, I just want to let you know about what the Shaker PTO is doing this year and all the different, we have vice presidents in different areas. And like one person, for instance, that we have sitting here is Shirley McCormick. And she has been, we're definitely going to have something about the mental well-being of your children this year, whether it's going to be a speaker series or whether it's going to be just coming out and just learning about the different things that we got going on. So I can encourage you to network with her after the meeting today. And we do have a do have a PTO meeting on Monday. So if there's things that you don't feel the schools are addressing, please bring it to the PTO and see what we can help with as we go about. But feel free if you want to try to attempt to answer that, or if we should move on to another question. Sure.
We definitely agree with you. I mean, I just,
I
know.
don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
Richard,
I'm listening to all the parents, and one of my personal and my professional frustrations has been everything that everyone has said. My background is occupational therapy, and everything you're describing is a part of occupational therapy. I think that occupational therapists have not been utilized fully. My background, we can treat mental health. We can address things like the stress, the values, clarification, the planning, the organization, the life skills. And so personally, I worked in long-term care, like more geriatric, but even in that setting, we had a screening tool, where if I had a 100-bed facility, not everyone is on my caseload at that time, but I'm still responsible for the 100 people that live there, whether they're long-term or short-term patients. And so as an OT, I had days that I would just go screen people and see, talk with that person. And so I don't know if there's a way to incorporate, like for instance, if you have a student that has come to you 3 times that week because they are just bombarded and overwhelmed, not sleeping and stressed. And I personally feel like the OT, and maybe not right now, the way they're used in the schools, with the IEP, it may be someone who has ADHD, it may be someone who's autistic. So the OTs usually in a school setting are seeing students for that reason. But unique to my profession, different from speech therapy and physical therapy, is we do cognition that crosses over with speech, but we're the only ones who can address mental health. And it's very holistic. And so, it's funny, it's not funny, but just listening to everything, because myself, it's been frustrating in my profession, because I think there's a gap there that we as occupational therapists can bridge the gap. We can be the eyes and ears to then make a referral and speak to the counselor, or say, this student, I did this assessment with them, I did this values clarification with them. This is what's meaningful to this student. So yes, their mom, their dad, maybe you may be recommending, I want you to be in this art program, I want you this, I want you that. But if it's not meaningful to the student, and of course we still want them to have academic success, but if the passion, if the drive isn't there, then they're not going to succeed. They may be overwhelmed, they may be stressed. Also, we can bridge the gap in saying, I see some signs and symptoms of depression and so forth. Do you want to suggest to your student or to the parent that the welfare services are available outside of just the counselors, and maybe they should have an assessment done and get that added service. So I feel that OTs can be a great liaison between all of it, same thing in the hospital. I make a recommendation to the social service address things like time management, being a student and an athlete, and maybe someone who gets home and has responsibilities, like you said, and then learning how to manage money and how to do an interview, and kind of take the load off of the counselors or, you know, other professors or whomever is in the building that's kind of wearing multiple hats. You know, that's what I'm licensed and educated to
So
do.
let me ask you this then, can we ask the question then, are there those kind of supports in Shaker right now? So if your child does have this kind of stress going on, they want to come talk to somebody, what is that avenue going on right now so that maybe we can start addressing it, if that avenue is not there? Or is it there?
Yeah, sure, there's,
You can talk, and then I'm gonna.
so I mean, I would say there's, you know, when we look at schools, we look at tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. School-based OT is very different. OTs are amazing resources. The school-based OT is a referral based on a need from an IEP, from an evaluation team. As far as supports here at school, our counselors are our first line, you know, our first line of defense, I would say. Our school nurse is a damn good nurse. Her name is Paula Dale. She's amazing. We have welfare. We have SAY worker, Nancy. She's amazing with the young people, just very much enjoy going to her. And we have a new welfare therapist coming on, but again, kids have to qualify for that. So we have those resources here, and we do very much refer out for students for that sort of thing. As far as executive functioning, to a direct person, no, we don't have that. Many of us work with kids individually on that. But, you know, our time is limited. I mean, right now, good luck talking to me. I have 12 letters of recommendation to write by Thursday.
Just to add, just from my experience as a parent, when I'm walking in the halls and stuff, the security guards, and I'm not sure if they're trained to do this,
They're
but they,
very much,
yes,
thank
and
you.
they have relationships with.
Our security is amazing, and actually, our security does a lot of triage, what I call triage. So they'll know kids. When new students come in, we often put lockers in specific places to try to help, and security takes them under their wing. And I think teachers do also, but thank you for bringing them up. We have our security is not, they talk with kids, they know the kids, they have relationships, they get kids to do things based on that.
I wanted, right here.
So I wanted to go back to this thing when we were discussing executive functioning, and you said that it's totally age appropriate for, say, freshmen to not have that skill. And I appreciate that, but what I find, so I have 3 freshmen, I have triplet boys that are freshmen, so for all of you that are freaking out, yeah, take a big gulp, think of me every night. So what I guess I find terrifying about this is that, yes, it's age appropriate, but I feel like there is no margin for error, there is no permission to fail, because everything is so high stakes.
Yeah.
And so even though it's supposed to be normal, particularly for boys at 14 to lose their planner, forget their homework, the dog ate, whatever, that there's still no margin to screw up.
Absolutely.
Because everything is racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour, especially if you're placed in the 9 honors math or whatever. And then there's progress book, which I was saying to Emily, is the bane of my existence.
I put it on here
Because it's so high stakes, I feel compelled to look. You know, my friends that have kids that are older have warned me, don't look on it every night, you're gonna rip your hair out, time it, do it once a week, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah,
again,
you miss too much if you do it once a week.
you miss too much, especially, I think that if you have an older kid or one that's much more self-sufficient,
Right.
you can wait and look once a week, or even less, right? But if they are freshmen that don't have the executive functioning skill, you can't wait and do it once a week. So
You
you're
can set
doing-
up alerts, so it actually tells you.
Yes. But it's insane. And now, I find myself every day looking at this effing thing and seeing, and the other problem is like, one of my kids has like straight A's and the other has like a D and an F, right? And so it's like, how do I then be a kind parent to all my kids and not be screaming at the kid that has the D in science?
Right, you can be a helicopter parent, a snowplow, and a lounge parent all at once, right?
Yeah, but it's so hard. So I don't need to vent and like lay
No,
out.
I mean, like, I'm hearing you.
I'm just looking for help from
No,
other
I'm hearing you. I mean, like, there are a lot of twins in my family, so I don't know the 3 rule, but I know the 2 rule, right? And it is, and some other people here do as well, right? And it is really hard when those 2 are not matched up. It is
Yeah.
really challenging, right? And my husband's a twin, and his brother and their friends still remind my husband when he earned a lower percentage, because they're Canadian, they don't do A's, so it's like, oh, I got a 98, you got a 92 in engineering in high school. And, you know, and that kind of stuff. And it is really challenging. And I think that the key is that, and this is so annoying, is that for different children, right, we really do have to do different things. And I wouldn't say that it's like completely unforgiving. I mean, if this continues until June, then yeah, we're stuck, right? But I think there's lots of ways to work with the teachers to catch things and have other opportunities throughout the school year. And this is something that, right, I mean, different kids do different things, right? And then trying to have your counselor help you find the right person to meet with them and those types of things is really essential. Because what strategy is going to work for this child is not going to always work for this other one, even especially in the same family within the same age, because, you know, then why even do that? If it works for them, you've got to prove that it doesn't work for you.
So as we're gonna get some other questions, I do want to acknowledge the time that we'd like to end it by 8:30, okay, for everyone. Also, when it comes to this parent support, then bring that up with any kind of PTO officer to see what we can do as a PTO for parents who are going through the stress also along with their children.
I have a progress book thing to share with you.
Okay.
We can wait till after.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. He had his hand up for a while in the back. I really apologize.
I just want to make a comment. It's one thing to understand that the kids need to learn time management, but I think the teachers are under stress too. It's happened twice in the last 6 weeks where a homework comes home with a typo on it, and the kid spends a half hour to an hour trying to figure out what happened. And when we bring it up with the teacher, oh yeah, sorry, that should be a 7. Oh, you know, you can't manage time if the tools that are given to the kids are wrong in the first place. And it's happened twice. And I think Google Sheets, raise your hand if you use Google Sheets. Nobody. It's useless. It's useless. Why can't we use Excel?
Well, yeah, we didn't get to vote on that
We
one.
can debate about that.
I mean, like, we didn't get to vote on that one. That decision was made by other people.
Unfortunately, I think that's a weak answer. I've already heard that one.
Well, I mean, like, no. I mean, like, as a teacher, that was not my choice, right? I mean, that was literally not my choice.
Okay, so maybe the PTO needs to step in and fix that one, because that's a waste of time. When it takes you 20 minutes to do in Google Sheets what you could do in 2 with Excel, it's not good time management.
It's a spreadsheet.
This is,
It's the Excel version of,
But it's awful.
but it's primitive.
did you have a, yeah.
So I'm gonna go back a little bit to the whole 4 testing on one day.
With the fire drill.
With a fire drill.
Oh,
With a
yeah.
fire drill and the
But,
economics
okay,
test.
so
And the English test, and the AP bio test, and one of the math sections. They're
right,
all affected
so
by it.
what I don't understand is, and you said before, like, we had the homework studies and then nothing ever gets done about all this, like, where is it getting lost? Is it getting lost here at the high school with the principal and then,
Well,
or
in the
does
last
it
5
have to go
years-
to the administration? I mean, I didn't even know there were flex night clubs and that other thing where you said there's flex night. So I'm pretty good at logistics. How hard
is that there's 3 tests that, and I don't know about the 4th one, but that science, math, and social studies all test on Wednesday.
Why is that?
Difficult course subjects
Right, because there's 2 test days a week for each course.
Okay, so again, if everybody knows this, and it's like, where is it that the change has, does it have to go to the superintendent to say, or does it have to go to the principal? Where is it that these decisions, the same thing with homework, the same thing with executive functioning? It's like, if you're asking a 9th grader to do something that they're developmentally not ready for, why are you asking a 9th grader to do something they're I mean, when I was in school, and we all know this, we went here at the same time, 9th grade was still junior high. You know, so
high
it's
school
like,
now.
are we asking these, and you're saying thing, like, it isn't really funny that
No.
these kids aren't sleeping, that they're stressed out, and that everybody says, yeah, IB program is great, but it's a lot of work, and like, it just turns some kids off, just like, so where is it that it has to make the change?
And I just want to step in here a little bit. I want to be mindful of the time. I think this is so important and so crucial, and I think we all feel it when we hear these questions. Every one of us in this room can feel the stress and the exasperation, and I think it's noticeable that you can also hear it from the panel, because these are experts in their field and really great at their jobs, and they are not the decision makers of these issues that you are discussing. So I highly recommend, and I want to strongly suggest, one would be attending PTO meetings. I know that's hard for people, but if not, making your voice heard and making requests and questions known through that avenue. And secondly, please make your voice heard through writing letters to the principal, the school principal, the superintendent, the administration. Copy everybody so that, because if you just write to one person, you don't have any recourse when you don't get a reply. So that's what a superintendent and that's what a school principal, a lot of these questions that have come up tonight, I think need to be voiced to the administration, because that's what administration means. They are administrating these policies and making these decisions. And sometimes we don't know the answers, and sometimes we might find out there's a good reason for something or a decent rationale, and sometimes the rationale won't make sense to us. But as someone who's kind of, I'm a student support, I'm a clinical social worker at the middle school, and I work with the team. So one suggestion I've always had for the high school, and one question I've always had is, why don't they have a student support team here at the high school? Meaning, why don't they get together and meet as a team on a regular basis so they can kind of hear what's going on, and the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. The high school's twice as big. I'm sure it's difficult to get everyone together. But that's something for me, myself, not as an employee, but as a parent, I have written, I have gone to the powers that be and said, it's incomprehensible to me that the social worker and the Belfer social worker and the school psychologist and the OT and all these people aren't meeting on a regular basis to talk about what's going on with kids.
What are
Those kind of things help.
Who meets on Monday when the kids go home early? What is that?
So every Monday we have it rotates kind of in
But
our
I mean, is that like a
professional
time where
development.
the teachers can say, well, my test is this day, and or is this only science people get together?
So I think you're hitting on a really important part, and I want to say the thing about the flex nights. The good news with the flex nights is that we have identified days. It is a school policy. We have a policy to lean back on to say, why did this happen? Now, in this case, it was by the policy. It just so happened, end of the quarter, all these sort of stars aligned, and it was a no-poop moment for a lot of our kids. That was bad, and I think anybody here would say that was really bad, and we wanted to prevent that sort of thing going forward. In the case of the grading policy, well, great. So that's the left hand, right hand, that nobody knew, I guess, put the pieces together. But I bring that policy up because in the case of grading, in the case of who's giving a test when, where, and how, we have, as Mary pointed out, we have 8 people teaching global studies. So step 1 would even be getting those 8 people to say, what is the day that we are going to give the Unit 1, Chapter whatever test? That's a good first step before we even get to a point of saying, okay, that's when global studies giving the test. How about math, science, XYZ? Not to mention, there are foundations biology, plus core bio, plus this bio. So now you've got levels. So the complexity is real, and I apologize if I'm coming off defensive. I don't mean to be. I just want to say it's not something that we've ignored, or it's not something that we care deeply for your children and their well-being. And I appreciate, Emily, what you said. It is something we care very much about, and it is something that we would appreciate help with. And I think some of Emily's advice is really great advice, so that we can work our best for your kids. That's what we want to be doing. We don't like stress them out.
I want to.
I have a comment on that as for health and safety. We're talking about well-being because we're talking about student anxiety. Depression can be related to lack of sleep. We're talking about a variety of issues with this. Maybe one way we can look at this, besides saying we're going to write something, is get together with a group of parents who want to do this, to have people sign everything. We can have a letter listing out all of our concerns and put signatures on it, not just willy-nilly this person, that person, that maybe at this PTO meeting next week, we talk about that and put something together that is organized and shows the number of people that we have critical mass.
Right, and if you can't come on Monday night, between now and Monday, please email, you can find online who your PTO officers are. You can email Shirley, email Nevin or myself, or the PTO presidents and say, I can't be there, but this is one of my questions or issues or concerns I would like brought up during the time that you discuss health and wellness. And we will get to that on Monday night and report out.
I want to invite. We're going to have to close it down.
Well,
Thank you so much for the panel. Well, thank you.
One more question? I hate to leave one.
Well, we had a few more
question.
hands, so I didn't know.
Oh, we
Okay.
did? Okay, I'm sorry.
You want to?
I just wanted to ask, you guys had mentioned how the guidance counselors were one of the best resources. How often, like for the ninth graders, do they meet with the guidance counselor?
So we have a set curriculum with every grade level. So in ninth grade, our curriculum is that we met with our ninth graders early on, and then we are meeting with
Once a quarter.
We meet with them once a quarter. That's great. So we've just met with them. Then we're going to work on in December. We have an assembly schedule. We'll be meeting with ninth graders and 10th graders getting ready for finals to talk about it before the winter break. Some strategies for that. We're meeting, backtracking a little bit, we're going to our 10th graders. We met with them in biology class at the end of September, and then we meet with our 11th graders regularly, and I would say...
You're meeting with them individually, or?
11th graders we meet with advisory first, that's every month, and then we're getting ready to start our post-secondary program, and how that looks is we have a parent night in 11th grade, college night, it's mostly geared to, and then we have an individual family meeting with every 11th grade family. And so it is tailored to who each student is. I know that many of my students will be looking at four-year universities, some will not. And so what's the plan? What's the plan? I project what they might take out in high school. We review their transcripts. We talk about the A to Z about college and everything, possibly make a college list. We're also working with a lot of different facets of this in advisory, and then we do that. Every counselor does it differently. Most of us are done with our meetings before we start program planning, which is in February, which is the next touchstone where we meet with all our students again to plan their schedules. Every counselor does it differently. We do it in small groups. I like to do it in groups of 2 to 3. Everybody does it differently. We do that through March, and then we go into the 4th quarter, and I don't think we have any set program that we do with 4th quarter, and then we meet with individual kids as needed. Kids can request. We also get a report of kids with poor grades, and we actively work with those students to help improve their grades. As far as seniors go, we meet with every senior, make a plan. I've met with every one of my seniors already, multiple times now, as the deadlines for November 1st is coming up for a lot of kids. But every kid has a plan. I've reviewed all their transcripts with them, all their testing requirements, and every student has signed off on what they know that they need to graduate, what they need to do with testing, I'm not any different than any of my colleagues. So,
No,
does that help?
well, because you're writing the letters, that's why I'm asking how,
Right.
how you get to know the students.
So we get to know them really well in advisory. You'd be surprised that planning meeting is an hour to 2 hours, and after that, there's a lot of check-ins, a lot of check-ins. I feel, do I know my ninth graders? No, not that well, but I know everyone, and I know what classes they're in and everything, and
Oh, so advisory is with the guidance counselors?
in 11th
In
grade.
11th grade.